Dodson case, because so many of you missed it last week since we had 2 trials going at once. That's one of the perks, but also one of the drawbacks of 2 trials going at once is sometimes we miss the others. The reason that we're replaying this is because we're starting a new case and they're in the process of picking a jury in that new case in Iowa today. So while they pick a jury in that case, we are preparing for that. We are going to take that case to you live the minute that it starts, but we're thinking that's likely going to be first thing tomorrow morning. In the meantime, we're playing you parts of this Dodson case, and I have my fabulous guests with me. We've had such a great time having such in-depth conversations. Yes. Stephanie Willis and Jonna Spilbor. Jonna has to leave us in just a minute, but before you do, I just want to sort of, we've now watched all of the testimony of Larry North, who's friends with the defendants, but now we're going to hear from the mother of the girls whose house where this shooting occurred. Again, with the, with the sympathetic pull of this, but how important is it for these people to be willing and able to testify in these cases?
Well, these are the types of witnesses that aren't always willing and able to, let's say not always willing to testify, but probably able. From a defense perspective, I don't really want her testify.
Of course.
But from a prosecution standpoint, she probably will add a few of the facts, not to mention add to the sympathy factor that, just an innocent person with friends on the porch and then this poor young man. But they don't, not every witness, that's a really great point, wants to be there. Right. Not every single one.
Absolutely. I'll pick up where she left off. That is so true. As a prosecutor in New Orleans, especially handling a lot of murder cases, this is so true because they don't want any retaliation back on their family, especially if this is a gang-related crime. So a lot of the times it's extremely difficult for the prosecution to have witnesses to come and testify. Sometimes, even though they're under subpoena, they will not show up, and then you have to, enforce the subpoena and force them to come in, which is something no prosecutor really wants to do.
Right, because that they're not going to, it always reminds me of my favorite witness of all time, which was McMasters, the street sweeper in the Aaron Hernandez case. Yeah. He clearly did not want to be there. Right. And who would? Whether you believe Aaron Hernandez is guilty or not guilty, he certainly was involved with a lot of people who ended up dead. And so, this guy just lives in Boston, sweeping streets and minding his own business. Yep. And to have to testify is certainly something that you might not want to do. And then in the most recent case, didn't someone say,
witnesses.
I don't swear to tell the truth.
You want to testify, and the other person flat out said, "Nope, I lied when I gave information."
That was in this case, the Dobson case, wasn't it?
I believe so. It does happen, and so we're about to watch this clip of this mother who, we'll talk about her testimony afterwards, Stephanie. You'll still be here with me because I think her testimony is just really interesting about what she's trying to do for her family and what she's up against in this neighborhood and the lifestyle that they're sort of living. But I want to thank you so much, Jonna, to coming on and talking. The Me Too movement is a interesting topic and one that everybody has sort of different opinions on, and I loved getting your take on it. So thank you for being here with us.
It's going to be around for a while.
Yeah, we'll continue to talk about it
in 2018.
I am sure we will, and we'll see you soon. In the meantime, we're going to take you back to the testimony of this neighbor. She's the mother of some of the girls that were caught in the crossfire of this shooting. So very interesting testimony. We're going to watch that, and Stephanie and I will be back to discuss it.
Now, when they would come over, would they bring boys with them?
Boys wasn't allowed in the house.
And that was my next question. Was that one of your rules?
That was one of the rules, my own rule.
And were there times when boys would come over but not be allowed in the house?
Oh yeah, they can sit on the porch.
Okay. And you say porch, which porch would that be?
The front or the back. They just wasn't allowed inside the house.
Okay. So is that something that had happened before is my question?
Where boys coming over?
Where girls and boys would be on one of your porches?
Oh yeah, all the time.
All the time?
All the time.
Okay. Now, did you know Zaevion Tobson and Zach and those boys?
I heard them through the girls. I just knew them through the girls.
Okay, you had you ever met them before? Do you recall?
I can't remember. I think so, because one time I did allow the boys to come in the house. One time I think it was real cold or something, and it was some boys down there, and she introduced, but I'm not for sure. But I think so because that was her regular friends, and they always came by. So.
And a boy by the name of Xavier Malone, did you know him too?
I just knew his name. I didn't really know him.
Okay. Now, December 17th, you told us that they were there with the friend's house walking. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Did they come back?
Yes.
You know about what time they might have come back?
They didn't go. They weren't gone long. So. I don't know what time.
Okay. What did they do when they came back?
I just heard them come in laughing as usual, talking, being loud. I heard the door keep opening and out on the back porch. I kept hearing it, but I didn't think nothing of it. Just what they always do.
Now, what were your children doing at that time?
My kids was in my daughter's room playing.
Playing?
Yeah, watching movies supposedly, yeah.
Is that an upstairs or downstairs room?
Upstairs.
Is it a bedroom?
Yes.
And you say they were playing?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be watching the movie.
You say supposed to be watching the movie. Were they not watching the movie?
No, I heard them arguing.
Okay. And as a mother, did you have to deal with that situation sometimes?
Yeah. That time though, I was on my phone watching a YouTube video, so I just let them argue until they came in the room.
Okay. Then they came in the room, into your room?
Mm-hmm.
Is that an upstairs room as well?
Yes.
And when all that arguing and them coming to your room was going on, where were Faith and Kiara and anybody else?
They would have to be downstairs. Like I said, I kept her in the back door open and closed, so they had to be outside and coming in like they usually do.
Now, while all that was going on, was there a time when something startling happened?
Well, my two kids came in the room and they said something was wrong with the DVD player. So I got up and went and checked and see what was wrong, and one of them had to knock it down because the 3 cards, white, red, and yellow plugs in the back of it was broken inside of the DVD player.
Okay.
So I was like, y'all didn't mess it up, y'all just gonna have to go lay down, like playtime is over with. Which they was begging though, but I still walked to my room and I shut the door and got back on my phone. And then they came right behind me and was asking me, please, can we go downstairs? And I kept saying no, and I kept saying no. And something was like, well, y'all just let them go down there because they wanted something to drink. And I said, okay, go down there and come right back. So I heard my kids going down the steps, and I heard them go in the kitchen because the walls are real thin so you can hear everything. And I heard them open up the refrigerator door. So with that time frame, I just heard what I thought I heard about 4 or 5 shots. And I was kind of shocked in a way, like, am I hearing what I think I'm hearing? So I paused my video that I was watching on YouTube, and I was still sitting there for a while just trying to see if I heard anything or something. And I heard more shots. So at that time, this is when I got up, and I was scared and I was trying to make myself walk, but I was so scared. I remember just walking slow to the steps. And when I was walking, I was calling my kid's name and nobody would answer me. Like I didn't hear anything. It was just quiet.
How'd that make you feel?
My heart, I ain't feel good at all.
What's the next thing?
I just kept calling for my kids and nobody would never answer me, so I just started going down the steps. To me, it felt like I couldn't get down the steps fast enough, but by the time I can get like to the half of part of the steps, because it's like it goes down and then it curves. So when I came to the curve part, I looked down and I could see my daughter looking up at me. So I was like, where your brother at? Where's Jay Shine? And when I said that, he come running up the steps and they both just start running. So I was like, y'all go upstairs, go in the room and lay down. They shooting outside going upstairs. So when we all ran upstairs, I went back to my room and grabbed my phone off the bed. And that's when I started hearing the girls call my name. Faith, she was calling my name.
Okay.
So I was like, what was that? Everybody just, y'all need to get down, y'all need to get down, they shooting. And before I knew it was calling 911, Faith and Kiara was already up the steps with me. I'm at the top of the steps. And when she looked at me, Faith, she was just like, what was that? What was that noise? I just looked at her while I was talking to the operator, the police lady or whatever, like, there was gunshots, what you talking about? Like, they shooting, who the hell outside, what the hell going on? Like, I don't know, I just started losing it. And then when I looked over, like, my kids was looking at me, still in their room with the door open and everything. I was like, didn't I tell y'all to get down? Like, get down, what y'all doing? And then they just looking back at me and I just looked like, oh, the window busted out. They can't get down because my daughter's bed and everything was right there by the window. So I said, y'all just come in my room, everybody just go in my room. So everybody just run in my room, I shut the door. The girls was crying. my kids is looking shocked, and at the time I was talking to the lady, she's telling me to calm down, like, what's going on? Just keep on screaming out my address to her, but I guess I was screaming so loud she couldn't understand me, so she was like, please just calm down and just talk to me. So I was finally able to calm down and talk to her. And once I realized, like, could have lost my kids, like, if I wouldn't allow them to go downstairs, then they would have been upstairs in the room. And then my daughter, she just as tall as me, like she was tall at the time just as she is now, like somebody would have got hit and it just hit me. I just started crying and screaming and hugging my kids, like looking up to the sky, like thank you God. And then the girls started screaming and crying and everybody just started crying and it was just crazy.
Okay, and we'll talk a little bit.
Welcome back to the Law and Crime Network. I'm here now with Stephanie Willis, and we're continuing to cover this Tobson case, which is just a heartbreaker. I think that it's, the family must feel so good to have this over with and to have these 3 men convicted. But we just heard from this woman who's, she's trying to keep the boys and the girls separated. Right. She's trying to make sure that everyone's safe and to live in a community where she hears the noise, recognizes them as gunshots, has her kids lay down on the floor. I mean, some people deal with this every day, and I think a lot of us can't even imagine dealing with something like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is not something that that anyone would like to deal with on a day-to-day basis, but like Zaevion's mother stated before, and this witness, I believe her name is Natasha, as she testified, this is something that they dealt with on a daily. So she knew what she was hearing when her daughters were outside and she was inside, as you stated, because boys were not allowed inside the house. And then Zaevion did the heroic thing of covering her daughter and her daughter's friend and ultimately saving their lives. He sacrificed his life for them.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's amazing that these moms, I mean, like Natasha is talking about how she tried to keep the boys and the girls separated and do everything they can to protect them from all of these dangers that every parent wants to protect their child from, and then to add to that to have to worry about gunshots from rival gangs, and it's just terrible. And to the point that we were just talking about with Jana, the idea that not everyone wants to testify was actually, as you said, Stephanie, a big part of this case. And the next witness is Stephanie Ogle, who was one of the people who handles subpoenas and testifying to the fact that not everyone was responding to their subpoenas. And that's something that can really stand in the way of the prosecutor being able to, as Jana said, defense loves it, but for a prosecutor, you can't put on your case if you don't have the witnesses.
Absolutely. So from the defense perspective, that's great. But as myself as a prosecutor, no, it's horrible. And number one, you're thinking about, yes, of course, this ruins my case, but you're also thinking about the fact that at the end of the day, after this case is over, these people have to go home. So they have to live under those circumstances in that particular situation again. So you are internalizing everything that they're thinking about, but yet at the end of the day, you have to put forth a case. You have to prove your burden. You have to meet your burden beyond a reasonable doubt. And so having to go to the extent of having to issue a subpoena is something that a lot of prosecutors don't want to do, but will do it if need be.
Right, because you also don't want a nasty witness, or someone who's going to now no longer support your case because they're afraid. We'll see that with this next witness. This next witness is speaking to this idea that subpoenas aren't just easily served and everyone just shows up and it's all well produced as it is here at Law and Crime. So we'll watch this next witness and we'll be back to discuss.
Stephanie Ogle.
Can you spell your last name, please?
O-G-L-E.
Where are you employed?
Knox County Criminal Court.
What do you do with the Knox County Criminal Court Clerk's Office?
I'm the office supervisor.
Now, what is the Knox County Criminal Clerk?
We are the keeper of the records for criminal court.
As such, like this case here that we're trying, is there a file on this case?
Yes.
And in front of you, do you recognize that as being one of the files from this case?
Yes.
And what all do you keep in those files?
We keep all the original filings. We keep motions, orders, subpoenas. Sometimes we'll even keep email exchanges between attorneys asking us to reset cases, things like that. The indictment, presentment.
So for the subpoenas, explain to us, how does the subpoena process work?
We issue subpoenas on cases typically 3 to 4 weeks before a setting, sometimes earlier if it's requested. Witnesses are listed on the indictment or presentment, and sometimes there's orders adding witnesses. Defense attorneys sometimes will give a list of subpoenas they need, and we issue those through our system.
And in that file, can you tell us whether or not an officer by the name of Brian Mason, whether or not a subpoena was issued for him? And to be fair, I've already put the sticky on it. I mean, it's fair to say that's a thick file.
It is, yes. Yes, I do show that a state subpoena was issued for Brian Mason on November 29th,
What year?
2017.
For this case?
Yes.
Also in that file, discovery, or the discovery responses, are they in that file
Yes.
as well?
Mhm.
Do you show whether or not the state of Tennessee provided to the defense, Mr. Bassett, a copy of a crime scene log from Green Hills?
I see that on October 20th, the state filed a supplemental discovery response. It says the description was an email and jail.
Well, it's an email from who?
Officer Stevens.
Okay, and if you turn to the, what is attached to that supplemental discovery response?
There's a CD right above it. I'm not sure if that goes with this motion or.
It says email from J. Stevens.
It says email from Officer Stevens, yes.
And what was that date again?
That was filed on October 20th, 2017.
Passages.
It's actually Mr. Rogers' turn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Any cross-examination? Mr. Rudy, yes.
Ms. Ogle, we know each other. We interact with each other on probably a day-in, day-out basis, maybe 4 days a week, correct?
Yes.
And your obligation is the keeper of the records as well as the members of the staff that you supervise, correct?
Correct.
The subpoena that the general asked you to look at, would you flip to that first, please? You have that in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Do you see the piece of paper directly on top of it? There's about 3 or 4 of them. They're blue, aren't they?
Yes.
And the piece of paper that has the subpoena for Officer Mason is what color?
This particular one is white.
When subpoenas are generally, as a matter of course, obtained from the Knox County Attorney General's office, what color are they?
We print subpoenas out in blue. However, if I could add
You can add anything you want. I'm not trying to restrict you. I just want to know.
Objection, if you can finish
Go ahead.
answering the question.
Oh, you can finish your answer.
the clerk who issues the subpoenas for Division 1, she and I share a copier. Actually, it's a copier that's used throughout the office. When she's printing subpoenas, she puts blue paper in. That copier is used by many, many people, and if she's got blue paper in it, somebody may use her blue paper and she may print out on white. We do like to keep them in blue because that sticks out in the file, the subpoena.
That tells you what's in the file to differentiate it from other documentation in the file, correct?
Correct.
Part of the standard operating procedure of the clerk's office.
Yes.
Okay. And so, also part of the standard operating procedure, you've already testified, is that subpoenas are usually issued 3 to 4 weeks in advance, right?
Yes.
Okay. And this one didn't even get requested till what date? I believe you said November 29th.
It was issued on the 29th. Distinctly remember the request coming in with this particular officer, and I think
Well, the date's on the subpoena. It actually says November 29th.
yes, it was issued on the 29th, yes.
Okay. Turn to the discovery response. The general asked you, and we're dealing with the crime scene log, or what she referred to. You see that discovery response?
The supplemental?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And it's dated, when I say dated, not the date that the lawyers wrote on it, but the date that the clerk's office stamped it in.
Yes.
What date did the clerk's office enter it into and at what time?
It was stamped on in her office on October 20th at 10:51 a.m.
Would you, starting with the first page that Ms. Fitzgerald put a yellow tab on, tell me the number of pages of that document?
Four.
Is there any email, tongue-tied. Is there any email attached to that document?
No.
Nothing further.
Ms. Lee?
No questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Welcome back to Law and Crime Network. I'm Heather Hansen. We are continuing to go through clips of the Dodson trial, given that we weren't able to cover that one solely because we had another case going. This is in preparation for our new trial starting tomorrow. That's Iowa versus Larry Whaley. That is where there's Mr. Whaley there on the screen. He is accused of killing Samantha Teeter, a 19-year-old girl who was walking down the hallway, and he shot her through his door. She lived for, I think, a day or two. So initially he had been charged with attempted murder. He is defended by a public defender and had some serious conflict with his first public defender. That person moved to withdraw as a public defender, which, Stephanie, that's usually not super easy to do.
No, it's not.
We're seeing on the screen there a letter that he wrote to the judge indicating that has some questions about evidence and things are being held from him and giving away his car. He continuously tried to correspond with the court outside of his attorney's knowledge. What types of things in your experience, because I know in my experience it takes some pretty serious problems to sort of be able to withdraw, especially so close to trial.
Right.
But that public defender was able to withdraw close to trial.
There had to have been some really serious circumstances in order for the judge to, I guess, grant this. Particularly when you're a public defender, you're appointed to a particular case. At least that's how it was done in the jurisdiction or it's done in the jurisdiction where I practice. You're appointed to this particular case, and you have it from the beginning to the end, unless there are some extreme circumstances in which you and your client would not benefit from you, I guess, particularly trying this case. I guess one of the factors that you want to look into is whether or not, there could be some kind of a negative effect from your representation, or, you definitely want to look into the fact that the defendant in this case is contacting the court without going through his attorney. This is something that's it's really quite,
yeah. I mean, it's the ex parte communication is a problem, but he's citing the stand your ground law here. He says, I had an honorable discharge. I filed several motions to subpoena. He wants to subpoena those two people who he's claiming were trying to get him, and that's who he thought he was shooting through the door. I've got to say, Stephanie, I mean, the more that I read about this case, he says, I am an honorably discharged Marine. I would not be surprised if there's some PTSD. I mean, we're going to hear from mental health experts, let's put it that way. And, this is another thing that I sort of have an interest in as to whether or not there's going to be any studies of his brain done, because it certainly seems as though, he had the competency hearing, he's competent to stand trial, but that doesn't mean that he's competent to know the difference between right and wrong and to know whether or not he's acting in self-defense. It's going to be this is going to have Aaron Keller written all over it, because he loves to do
these cases.
The deep dives on the legal issues.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of legal issues. You've got the balance between insanity law and competency law and self-defense, and whether or not he can raise that issue, and is he trying to defend himself by sending these letters. There's going to be a lot to watch for our viewers at home. Things that we have not yet seen in our cases are going to be coming up. So don't just think that this is just another self-defense or another stand your ground or another slam dunk, because while it certainly seems that this poor Samantha Teeter was the victim of a terrible thing, first-degree murder. And that's the thing that he piped up about at one of his first hearings, this defendant, Larry Whaley. They said first-degree murder, and that sort of said, he was like, what do you mean first-degree murder?
Right.
There's no way. First-degree murder does seem a stretch in the circumstances.
Yeah, it absolutely. I mean, I don't think that, especially with what he's claimed, there was no premeditation here on his part.
Recklessness?
Yeah, some recklessness.
Yes,
absolutely. But the thing that, we want to look at as well is the fact that I kind of, because I may be confusing myself here a little bit, but he's saying that there were some individuals who were putting his life in harm's way, and so that's the reason why he shot. So I'd really love to see, if they issue out these subpoenas, are these individuals real, and what will happen if it comes out that these were people that were not real, so
just innocent people that he had sort of met up with.
Right.
For some reason, I believe that the prosecutor were fighting the depositions of those people, which is strange to me too.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you just want all the information out there and all the discovery sort of available, and so that everyone knows what they're dealing with?
Yes.
So this case is going to be a doozy, and they're picking a jury right now. As soon as they have a jury, I don't think that openings will be today. I know many of you are gnawing at the bit for another case. They do say it's going to take about a week to try, so that will take us right up to Christmas time. So we'll continue to watch, and as soon as we have a word about the jury in that case, we'll bring it to you. But in the meantime, we are continuing to watch bits of the Tobson case, and we'll take you to the next clip, which is one of the police officers who was testifying with respect to that case. When we come back, you'll have Aaron Keller sitting in the seat. Remember, he's going to be talking to you in part this afternoon. He's going to go over some of the hearing this morning for Dylan Adams in the Holly Bobo case. He's also going to be talking to you about Curtis Reeves, a blast from the past for all of us longtime Law&Crime viewers, who, he had a stand your ground hearing, and the judge in that case found that he was not able to escape liability because of the stand your ground, and that he actually had to stand trial. That is now being appealed, and if the appellate court disagrees with the judge, he may not have to stand trial at all. So that's one for us to watch as well, huh, Stephanie?
Absolutely.
So good having you here with me today. I really appreciate it.
It was fun.
Great to enjoy these conversations with you, and we will take you to these dots and clips. When you come back, you'll have Aaron Keller in the seat.